This is gonna be a delicious one because I'm gonna be making a sweet and spicy cedar planked salmon with cedar smoked mashed potatoes. Now we're actually going to be grilling up this salmon tomorrow out on the Weber kettle using a cedar plank. Tonight I need to get a couple things done. Need to get a sort of a dry brine rub on the salmon so it can absorb that overnight in the refrigerator. And I also want to get an herbed butter ready that we're going to use on our mashed potatoes. So let's do that butter first. So here I've got some fresh basil and some fresh tarragon. Measurement wise, I don't know, it's probably 7 or 8 basil leaves and maybe a tablespoon or so of tarragon leaves. These are both fresh. You could use dry if that's all you have. Now I'm just going to take the tarragon and try and jam it in here with the basil. Try and roll it all up. And I'm just going to sort of go through here and chop. Break it down a little bit first. And come back this way. Basically like that. Now let's get it in our butter. What I have here is a stick of salted butter that's been, broken into pieces and softened a bit. We're just going to get our tarragon basil mixture in here. And again, this is salted, so if you're using an unsalted butter, you're going to want to add some salt to taste, maybe half a teaspoon to start. And I'm just going to start mixing this up. Want to make sure you get all those herbs distributed in the butter. That looks good to me. Now I'm going to transfer this into a ramekin, which is going to be a perfect thing to hold it overnight in the refrigerator so it solidifies and just kind of sets up. Just going to spoon our butter in here. If you don't have a ramekin, just put it in a small little dish, or you can even roll it up in wax paper. Creates a little cylinder of butter. There we go. Our basil tarragon herb butter is ready. It's going to go in the refrigerator while we move on to our salmon. So our dry rub, dry brine for the salmon starts with a cup of brown sugar. To this I'm adding 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of cracked black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of chili powder. I'm using a Red Hatch chili powder. And we're going to mix this up. Got any of those big clumps of brown sugar that sometimes together? Let's reach in there and break them up. All right, that looks good. Let's get our salmon out here. All right, here are our salmon fillets. And what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna hit these with a little bit of soy sauce so we can get a little bit more moisture on the surface. They're fairly dry. Just a little bit of soy sauce. Go ahead and rub that. We have the skin on, so we're not too worried about getting rub or brine on that side, but some will get there. It's not gonna hurt. We're just gonna go ahead and get our rub and brine on there. You really want to get this on heavy. You want to really coat it, the sides. Make sure every exposed piece of that nice orange flesh has some rub on it. There's going to be a lot of excess, and that's fine. Pack it in there. All right, this is going to go into the refrigerator covered overnight. And tomorrow, I'll see you out at the Weber kettle when we get these on a cedar plank with some mashed potatoes. All right, our salmon has been soaking in that dry rub brine overnight in the refrigerator, and we're gonna head out to the Weber kettle in just a minute to grill those up on a cedar plank. But first we need to get our glaze ready for the salmon and our potatoes, because remember, we're gonna be making some cedar smoked mashed potatoes out there right alongside that salmon. Glaze is really simple. We're starting with half a cup of maple syrup. And to this I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of a sort of hot sauce. This is a hot barbecue sauce. I'm using a Trader Joe's Ghost Chili barbecue sauce. You can use any hot sauce you want to adjust to the level of heat you want. So really, like I said, maybe a couple tablespoons here. This is pretty spicy. Maybe that was closer to 1. And we're just gonna mix this together here. Just want to add a little more of that heat and sweet. This is sweet and spicy salmon. Give it a little taste. It's sweet and it's got a kick. All right, let's move on to making our mashed potatoes. What I'm using for potatoes today is about, I don't know, I didn't even weigh them. It's 4 good-sized, they're called white potatoes. I wanted some Yukon Golds, but they didn't have any great looking Yukon Golds, so These look really similar. You can see they have sort of a yellow flesh to them, really delicate skin, and I like to leave the skin on a lot of the times in my mashed potatoes. I like it a little more rustic. So these I basically cut in half. Some of them I quartered that were big, boiled them up, and they're ready to go. And really, this mashed potato recipe is just what I'm using here. You can make any mashed potatoes you want to put on this cedar plank. That's what's great about doing it this way. You get a lot of extra flavor by doing it out on the grill. So let's go ahead and just break these down before we add our other ingredients here. I'm gonna add about a half a cup of half and half and a couple tablespoons of butter. And I just wanna kind of start mixing these in. Get that butter melted in there. Again, if you like them really creamy, you can make them really creamy. The only problem with that is if they're too loose and you put them on the plank out on the grill, they could actually run off. So I like to do this when they have a little bit of body so that they'll hold together in a pile. And this consistency for me is looking pretty good. Remember, I like it a little more rustic. Let's get some seasoning in here. I'm gonna, I don't know, just sprinkle maybe half a teaspoon of kosher salt to start. Same thing, cracked black pepper. I'll work that in. Remember, we're also gonna be adding that herbed butter on top of these potatoes, so that's gonna be a lot of flavor there too. Let me get a taste. Good, a little more salt. And if you add salt, why not add pepper? Because I like a lot of pepper. Quick little taste with a clean spoon. That's it. All right, this is ready. Let me get the salmon out here. All right, so here we have our 2 salmon fillets. Now I took them out of the container that they spent the night in the refrigerator in. Now at this point, you could rinse these off and get all this pepper and everything off because a lot of that flavor has already soaked into the flesh. I'm gonna leave it on. I want all that extra flavor on the surface, and with that sweet and spicy glaze that goes on this, it's gonna be perfect. But again, it's up to you. Adjust the flavor to the way you like it. All right, let's head out to the Weber kettle, get that grill going, get these on some planks with those potatoes, make us an amazing meal. So I have my large charcoal chimney about 3/4 of the way full. The top briquettes are just starting to get some of the ashing on the bottom side, and that's when you want to dump this. And I just want to distribute these, so I give myself a pretty even layer over about 2/3 of the cooking chamber. I want one little spot that can be a sort of an off zone if I need to move one of the planks if it's getting too charred, too burned. Just like that, let's get our grate on. I'm using the Mallory M1 cast iron grate, which Mallory sent to me, I don't know, probably 5, 6, 7 months ago. I've been using it since then. I love this thing. They also sent me the wood planks I'm using today, so thank you, Mallory. Well, let's go ahead and get everything planked up. All right, I have my 2 cedar planks here. We're first gonna get our mashed potatoes on. Get some down to one side. Nice little mound. So each individual plank is gonna be for a person. And get some butter on to start. We can add more when they're finished. Now for our salmon. Just tuck it in there right up against those potatoes. All right, let's get these on the grill. I think I mentioned it, but if I didn't, those planks have soaked for a few hours in water. All right, let's go ahead and get our lid on, get cooking. We'll check them in about 10 minutes. If there's any flare-ups, I have a squirt bottle of water ready, but should be good. All right, we've been going about 10 minutes. If you hear any lawnmowers or anything, the gardeners are next door, but can't do anything about that. Let's check our salmon. Ah, those are looking good, and those potatoes look fantastic. All right, I'm gonna put my glaze on in a minute, but first I wanna check the temperature of the salmon. Most recommendations are that you cook salmon to 145 or above. You really have to cook it to what you choose and what you like in terms of doneness. So I'm gonna get a baseline temperature there. That's showing 124. This one's showing 108. So the smaller one, this one's just a little smaller. It's cooking a little quicker, which is normal. I like to cook mine to closer to 135. So if it's between 135 and 145, I'm happy. So I'm gonna put some glaze on these now. Get our nice glaze on these fillets. All right, I'm gonna get the lid back on, let them go for about 5 more minutes, and I'm pretty sure we'll be done. All right, we've been going another 5 minutes. Let's check and see. Look at that great color the potatoes get. All right, let's check our big guy here, because he's the one I'm, 142, we're good. Anywhere between 135 and 145, I said I'm happy. I'm happy. All right, I'm gonna get these off, and then we're gonna have a taste. So I was thinking, maybe I should just take it inside, plate it up, but no, look at this. This is the way I would serve it. I just put it on an old upturned baking sheet here just so it's not, burning this cover of the table. But man, look at the color on the salmon, the potatoes. I love it when I get to say this, when I'm looking at something like this, it's time to taste. So I'm just gonna dive in right here and I'm gonna go for some of these potatoes. Oh, look at that. I didn't even put any more herb butter on this. Wow. That flavor you get from the cedar aroma is amazing. And that's one of the reasons people started doing fish and beef and things like that. And with just great mashed potatoes and herbed butter on them, this is fantastic. Now, time for some salmon. Let's just go right in here. Oh, nice and flaky. Look at that. I've made a lot of salmon. That's the best salmon I've ever made. Oh man. Still juicy but cooked. This tasting session at the end of the video here might be 20 minutes long if I eat this whole thing. Oh man. You get the sweet and you get the heat, but the heat is not too much. And for me, leaving that dry rub on and not rinsing it off is really the way to go. Peels right away from the skin at the bottom there, nothing sticking to it. You could also do this skinless, but if you're gonna pay more for skinless salmon, it really isn't worth it. It just peels right away. And that cedar flavor on here, just that aroma that gets on the outside, this is really, really, really good. Oh. So if you've never done cedar plank salmon or cedar plank anything before, give it a try. It's not hard. Soak those planks, put a good piece of well-seasoned fish on that plank, add a side dish, you're gonna have a killer meal. It was fantastic.